so that they are constantly getting subsidies. But I do think that helping them restructure at this unique period when sales, the market has essentially gone from 14 million down to 9 million, I don't think that there's anything inappropriate about that. My goal on all this is to help these companies make some tough decisions based on realistic assumptions about economic growth, about their market share, about what that market's going to look like, to prevent systemic risk that would affect everybody. And as soon as their situations are stabilized and the economy is less fragile so that those systemic risks are diminished, to get out, find some private buyers. And
did you shape the products and the services that are on offer?
I don't think that we should micromanage, but I think that, like any investor, the American taxpayer has the right to scrutinize what's being proposed and make sure that their money is not just being thrown down the drain. And so we've got to strike a balance. I don't want to be, I'm not an auto engineer. I don't know how to create a affordable, well-designed plug-in hybrid. But I know that if the Japanese can design a affordable, well-designed hybrid, then doggone it, the American people should be able to do the same. So my job is to ask the auto industry, why is it you guys can't do this? And in some cases, they're starting to do it, but they've got these legacy costs. There are some terrific U.S. cars being made, both by Chrysler and GM. Question is, give me a plan so that you're building off your strengths and you're projecting out to where that market's going to be. I actually think if you look at the trends, that those auto companies that emerge from this crisis, when you start seeing the pent-up demand for autos coming back, they're going to be in a position to really do well globally, not just here in the United States. So I just want to help them get there. But I want to disabuse people of this notion that somehow we enjoy meddling in the private sector. If you could tell me right now that when I walked into this office that the banks were humming, the autos were selling, and that all you had to worry about was Iraq, Afghanistan, North Korea, getting health care passed, figuring out how to deal with energy independence, deal with Iran, and a pandemic flu, I would take that deal. And that's why I'm always amused when I hear these, criticisms of, Obama wants to grow government. No, I would love a nice, lean portfolio to deal with, but that's not the hand that's been dealt us. And every generation has to rise up to the specific challenges that confront them. We happen to have gotten a big set of challenges, but we're not the first generation that that's happened to, and I'm confident that we are going to meet these challenges just like our grandparents and forebears met them before. All right? Thank you, everybody.
And President Barack Obama there on his 100 days in office, speaking to the Washington Press Corps and also, of course, to the nation beyond. He said, as he was leaving there, Mike Duffy is joining me, from assistant managing editor from Time magazine. As he was leaving there, Mike, he said, this is not the hand that's been dealt me. My God, it's not the hand that was dealt him, he thought, wasn't it?
It's funny, he said twice, if I could have had a leaner portfolio, Caddy, I'd have been thrilled. Just a bad economy and maybe Iraq, but instead I have the worst economy in 75 years and all these other problems. At one point he said most presidents have 2 to 3 big problems. He has 7 or 8.
He covered a huge range of issues. The one thing that struck me is that he didn't spend a huge amount of time, though, on the economy.
Neither did the reporters. He came in saying, it's a work in progress, we've just begun. He said, I'm proud but not content. intent. And then he went off to saying we're going to do health care, we're going to do credit card reform, we're going to re-regulate the banks, we're also going to fix the Pentagon. But the questions really weren't about those things. They turned out to be about stuff that really is some leftover business: torture, secrets, abortion, and the auto companies.
Okay, Mike Duffy there, Assistant Managing Editor of Time Magazine. Thanks very much for wrapping up that President press conference there. Please join me here in about an hour at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be having a special edition of BBC World News America. I'm Katty Kay. This is BBC News.
Barack Obama marks his first 100 days in office, warning there's still hard work ahead to move the economy from recession to recovery. President Barack Obama has been marking his first 100 days in office. He started the day with a town hall meeting in St. Louis, Missouri, and within the past hour has held a prime-time news conference at the White House. His first 100 days have been dominated by the global recession, the crumbling U.S. car industry, as well as the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now he faces a major domestic emergency with the outbreak of swine flu. Well, the U.S. has seen its first death from swine flu, and President Obama says he's been in constant communication with top health advisors.
At this point, they have not recommended a border closing. From their perspective, it would be akin to closing the barn door after the horses are out, because we already have cases here in the United States. We have ramped up screening efforts, as well as made sure that additional supplies are there on the border so that we can prepare in the eventuality that we have to do more than we're doing currently.
Mr. Obama reflected on the past 100 days and outlined his government's plans for the future.
I think we're off to a good start, but it's just a start. I'm proud of what we've achieved, but I'm not content. I'm pleased with our progress, but I'm not satisfied. Millions of Americans are still without jobs and homes, and more will be lost before this recession is over. Credit is still not flowing nearly as freely as it should. Countless families and communities touched by our auto industry still face tough times ahead. Our projected long-term deficits are still too high, and government is still not as efficient as it needs to be. We still confront threats ranging from terrorism to nuclear proliferation, as well as pandemic flu. And all this means you can expect an unrelenting, unyielding effort from this administration to strengthen our prosperity and our security in the second 100 days and the third 100 days and all the days after that.
President Obama also said he's hopeful a viable auto industry can emerge from the economic crisis.
I would love to get the U.S. government out of the auto business as quickly as possible. We have a circumstance in which a bad recession compounded some great weaknesses already in the auto industry, and it was my obligation, and continues to be my obligation, to make sure that any taxpayer dollars that are in place to support the auto industry are aimed not at short-term fixes that continue these companies as wards of the state, but rather institutes the kind of restructuring that allows them to be strongly competitive in the future. I think we're moving in that direction.
Joining me from Washington is Matthew Continetti, who's Associate Editor of the neoconservative magazine, The Weekly Standard. Welcome to you. How do you think he's doing so far?
I think he's about average. If you look at the public opinion polling, he's within the average of recent presidents. He's had one major accomplishment domestically, that was the economic stimulus package. Abroad, he dealt capably with the pirate crisis a few weeks back, but he hasn't had much otherwise in the realm of foreign policy achievements. So I give him a C+, and the plus is for style and effort.
Okay, a C+ from someone who calls himself a neoconservative, perhaps not bad. The president said himself, normally president has 2 to 3 big issues to deal with. He has 7 to 8 big issues. Do you not think, under those circumstances, he's doing surprisingly well?
Well, he faces a challenging time, but, you know, the question I always ask is, where are the results? And the fact is, we're no closer to getting the U.S. government out of the auto industry, getting the U.S. government out of the banking industry, fixing employment, things like that, than we were when Obama became president. And when it comes down to major achievements going forward, I think we can give him an A at the end of this first year in office if he does pass this health care bill, which he's identified, and I think correctly, as his major domestic initiative of his first term.
You say no major results so far, but I mean, isn't 100 days a little early to expect any major results?
Absolutely. And he said it so himself. When you look at the numbers, what you find is that more Americans like Obama personally than approve of his presidency, and more Americans approve of his presidency than actually agree with his policies. If you get into the weeds of these numbers, you find a real ambivalence, sometimes outright opposition to what Obama is actually doing. And I think that's a concern going forward, especially when you look at issues of government finance, things like the deficit, things like budgeting, things like overspending. That may be a problem for him going forward.
Okay, Matthew Continetti, perhaps we'll talk to you in another 100 days. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.